The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council shook as the holographic displays flickered with scenes of horror. Entire star systems had vanished, their bright lights turned to empty darkness. Commander Kung Ho Park stood quietly at the small human platform, watching the most powerful beings in the galaxy whisper about their worst fears. "The Devourers have returned," said High Arbiter Velthan of the Zephyrian Collective. His words entered every mind in the chamber without sound. "What our people thought were just old stories now destroy our worlds." Captain Minei Shin touched her neural interface and downloaded thousands of years of alien stories. Tales of dark creatures that ate stars, legends of monsters from the empty space between galaxies. These beings had built ships that could travel through dimensions and weapons that could bend reality itself. Yet they shook like frightened children. The holographic displays showed the destruction clearly. Planets that had existed for billions of years were now nothing but floating dust. Solar systems that had supported trillions of lives were completely gone. The attacks had no pattern that made sense. The Devourers appeared from nowhere, consumed everything in their path, and vanished back into the void. "How many worlds have we lost?" asked Commander Park, his voice steady despite the horror around him. 47 star systems in the past month," replied the Architect Prime, its crystal body flashing with pain. 12 billion lives extinguished in moments. The alien leaders shared their memories through telepathic links. Park saw flashes of the attacks through their eyes, massive black shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapons that turned matter into energy and then consumed that energy too. Ships that phased through any defense as if it were not there. Our ancestors left us warnings, continued Velthan, stories of the first darkness, when these creatures nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. We thought they were myths created to frighten children. Captain Shin studied the tactical data flowing through her interface. The alien fleets were massive and advanced beyond human understanding. Ships the size of cities powered by captured stars. Weapons that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Defenses that could redirect the energy of entire suns. Yet none of it had worked against the Devourers. "Every weapon we have tried fails," admitted the Architect Prime. "Our energy beams are absorbed. Our particle accelerators are redirected. Back at us, our dimensional shields are bypassed as if they do not exist." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These were civilizations that had conquered death itself, that had turned their home worlds into paradise, that had unlocked the secrets of the universe. If they could not stop the Devourers, what hope did anyone have? "We need new ideas," said Velthan, his telepathic voice carrying desperation. "Different approaches. The old ways have failed us." All eyes in the chamber turned toward the human delegation. Earth's representatives stood on the smallest platform, their section barely visible among the massive alien structures. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, and most species still saw them as primitive newcomers. Park felt the weight of their stares. The humans had been invited to join the council more as a courtesy than because anyone thought they had something valuable to contribute. Their ships were slow and clumsy compared to alien vessels. Their weapons were crude chemical explosives and simple kinetic projectiles. Their technology was thousands of years behind the galactic standard. "Perhaps," said the Architect Prime with barely hidden condescension, "our newest members might serve as ... scouts. Their expendable nature could provide valuable intelligence, while our superior forces prepare evacuation protocols." Captain Shin's jaw tightened at the insult, but she said nothing. Park simply nodded politely, understanding the aliens' perspective. To them, humanity was useful only as cannon fodder. "We would be honored to assist," Park replied formally. "However, we would like to review all available data on the Devourers before committing our forces." The alien leaders exchanged glances that did not need telepathy to understand. They were humoring the humans, giving them busy work while the real decisions were made elsewhere. "Of course," said Velthan. "All our records are available to council members, though I fear you will find them ... overwhelming." The data transfer began immediately. Millions of years of accumulated knowledge flowed into human computers. Star charts showing the Devourer's path of destruction, sensor readings from the few ships that had escaped encounters, theoretical models of their technology and capabilities. As the meeting concluded, the alien delegations began making their own plans. Some spoke of fleeing to distant galaxies. Others discussed hiding in pocket dimensions. A few mentioned attempting to negotiate with the Devourers, though none believed it possible. The humans remained silent, processing the enormous amount of information they had received. To the aliens, they appeared overwhelmed and out of their depth. None of the advanced species noticed the small smiles that passed between the human officers. Captain Jin waited until they were alone before speaking. "They're not seeing the whole picture," she said quietly. "No," agreed Park. "They're so focused on energy-based solutions that they're missing the obvious." "The Devourers absorb energy," Shin continued. "They redirect particles. They phase through exotic matter. But what about simple, old-fashioned kinetic force?" Park nodded. "Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody else thinks to try." The galaxy's most advanced civilizations prepared for evacuation or extinction. But humanity began making different plans. Ambassador Ginwu Li sat in the sterile white meeting room, surrounded by alien officers who spoke to him like he was a child. The holographic displays showed battle after battle where advanced alien fleets had been destroyed by the Devourers. Yet these same aliens acted like humanity's simple weapons were toys. "Your missiles are so slow," said the Zephyrian tactical advisor, his blue skin shimmering with amusement. "They move at barely 1% of light speed. Energy beams travel much faster. Your railguns," added the architect's crystalline voice, "they fire simple metal projectiles. Very primitive compared to our particle accelerators." Nodded politely, while inside he felt his patience wearing thin. These beings had technology that seemed like magic to humans, yet they kept losing battles against the Devourers. Still, they talked down to Earth's representatives as if humans were too stupid to understand real warfare. Lieutenant So-Young Kim studied the tactical data on her tablet, trying to ignore the condescending voices around her. The battle reports showed the same pattern over and over. Alien ships would engage the Devourers with their most advanced weapons. Energy beams would be absorbed completely. Particle weapons would be redirected back at the ships that fired them. Exotic matter shields would be bypassed as if they did not exist. "Perhaps your forces could serve as scouts," suggested the Zephyrian commander. "Send small groups ahead to gather intelligence while our main fleets prepare strategic withdrawals." Kim looked up from her tablet. "Strategic withdrawals? You mean running away?" The alien officers exchanged glances. "Act! We prefer to call it tactical repositioning," said the architect stiffly, "reserving our forces for more favorable engagements." "How many favorable engagements have you had so far?" asked Captain Jahancho, entering the room with a stack of data pads. The silence that followed answered his question clearly. Jahim continued studying the Devourer attack patterns while the aliens discussed evacuation plans. Unlike them, she did not see unstoppable monsters in the data. She saw problems that needed solutions. The Devourers were incredibly advanced, but they were not magic. They followed rules, even if those rules were different from what the galaxy understood. "They absorb directed energy," she muttered to herself, highlighting sections of the reports. "They redirect high-energy particles. They phase through matter that has been altered at the quantum level." "What are you thinking?" asked Cho, sitting down beside her. "I'm thinking they have very specific defenses," Kim replied. "Defenses designed to counter exactly the kind of weapons everyone in this galaxy uses." The alien officers were still debating which star systems to evacuate first when Lee interrupted them. "What if we tried a different approach?" "Different how?" asked the Zephyrian advisor. "Well, you keep using energy weapons that get absorbed. What if we used something that is not energy?" The architect's crystalline form flashed with what might have been laughter. "You mean your chemical explosives? Your crude nuclear weapons?" "Such primitive technology would be useless against beings who can manipulate matter itself." "Maybe," said Lee. "But primitive technology is exactly what they would not expect." Kim stood up and activated the holographic display. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a section of battle data. "Every time the Devourers encounter energy weapons, they absorb them perfectly. But look at this anomaly. The display showed a brief moment during one battle where debris from a destroyed ship had struck a devourer vessel. For just an instant, the creature's shields had flickered. Physical impact, Kim explained. Simple kinetic force. The devourers are not designed to handle it. The alien officers studied the data with growing interest. It could be a sensor error, suggested the architect. Or it could be a weakness, countered Cho. A blind spot in their defenses. Even if that were true, said the Zephyrian commander, your weapons are still too primitive to be effective. Your missiles are slow, your railguns have limited range, your explosives are weak. Lee smiled. What if we combined our primitive technology with your advanced materials? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The aliens had access to materials that were stronger than anything Earth could produce. Metals that could withstand the heat of stars, crystals that could focus energy beyond imagination, composites that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. You want to build hybrid weapons? Said the architect slowly. Why not? Asked Kim. Take our simple kinetic designs and build them with your advanced materials. Create weapons that hit hard and fast, but do not rely on energy that can be absorbed. Would violate every principle of elegant design? Protested the Zephyrian advisor. Good, replied Cho. Elegant design is not winning this war. The aliens began to see the possibilities. Railguns built with crystalline components that could fire projectiles at near light speed. Missiles with exotic matter warheads that could punch through any defense. Nuclear weapons wrapped in dimensional shields that could not be detected until they exploded. This is madness, muttered the architect. Combining primitive concepts with advanced materials, it goes against everything we know about proper engineering. Everything you know about proper engineering is getting your fleets destroyed, Lee pointed out. Maybe it is time to try something improper. The meeting continued for hours as humans and aliens began working together for the first time. The aliens provided materials and manufacturing capabilities that Earth could never match. The humans provided simple, brutal concepts that the galaxy had forgotten in its pursuit of technological elegance. Your people think very differently, observed the Zephyrian commander as they reviewed the first weapon designs. Yes, agreed Kim. We think about what works, not what looks good or follows the rules. The Devourers follow rules too, added Cho. But they are prepared for your rules, not ours. As the unlikely alliance took shape, both sides began to understand what they brought to the partnership. The aliens had the technology to build anything imaginable. The humans had the imagination to build things that should not work, but did anyway. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had forgotten how to be crude and simple. But Earth remembered, and that memory might be enough to save them all. The orbital. Shipyards around Earth buzzed with activity that had never been seen before. Chief Engineer Yoonji Nam walked through the construction bays, watching her teams work on projects that broke every rule of proper engineering. Sparks flew as human. Welders attached alien components to human ship hulls with methods that made their galactic partners look away in horror. This is completely wrong, said the architect observer, its crystalline body flickering with distress. You are connecting a Zephyrian neural network directly to a primitive fusion reactor. The energy patterns are incompatible, Maybe replied, Nam not looking up from her work. But it is creating more power than either system could produce alone. The alien watched in fascination as human engineers ignored every safety protocol they had been taught. They bolted advanced alien computers onto crude human engines. They wrapped sophisticated energy conduits around simple metal pipes. Connected systems that should have exploded the moment they were turned on, Captain? Hyansu Bay supervised the weapons installation on the lead ship. Workers were mounting a railgun that fired crystalline cores at speeds that approached the velocity of light. The weapon looked like something built by children playing with their parents' tools. Rough metal brackets held precision alien components. Thick cables ran alongside delicate fiber optic networks. This weapon should not function, observed the Zephyrian technical advisor, studying the design with his advanced sensors. The power requirements exceed the reactor output by 300%. Should not and does not are different things, replied Bay, activating the weapon's charging sequence. Let's see what happens. The alien advisors stepped back as the hybrid weapon began to glow. Energy patterns that violated several laws of physics rippled through the ship's hull. The fusion reactor roared with power levels that should have caused it to explode. Instead, the alien neural network somehow channeled the excess energy into the weapon systems. "Impossible," whispered the architect. "The harmonics are all wrong. The energy flow creates destructive interference patterns." "But it works," said Nam, watching the power readings climb to levels that made the aliens nervous. "Sometimes wrong is right." The first test ship looked like a nightmare by galactic standards. Its hull was asymmetrical, with human components welded onto alien frameworks. Thick armor plating covered delicate sensor arrays. Chemical thrusters were mounted next to exotic matter drives. The entire vessel looked like it had been assembled by someone who had never seen a proper starship. "It is ugly," admitted the Zephyrian. "Observer, beauty does not win wars," replied Bay. "Function wins wars." The bridge of the test ship was equally chaotic. Human control panels sat next to alien holographic displays. Simple mechanical switches controlled systems that operated on principles beyond human understanding. The crew had to learn to operate equipment that combined Stone Age simplicity with Space Age complexity. Admiral Sungmin Park watched the first test firing from the command deck of the orbital station. The hybrid vessel moved into position near a derelict asteroid that had been scheduled for mining. The ugly ship oriented itself toward the target with movements that were both clumsy and precise. "Charging primary weapon," reported the test ship's captain over the communication system. The alien observers gathered around the viewing ports to watch. None of them believed the weapon would actually fire. Too many incompatible systems had been forced together. The energy requirements were impossible. The design violated fundamental principles of physics. The hybrid cannon fired. The beam that emerged from the weapon was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not pure energy. Like alien weapons, it was not simple matter like human projectiles. It was something in between, a stream of crystalline particles accelerated to relativistic speeds and wrapped in exotic energy fields. The derelict asteroid simply ceased to exist. It did not explode or break apart. It did not melt or vaporize. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone, leaving only empty space where millions of tons of rock and metal had been. The alien observers stood in stunned silence. Their advanced sensors had recorded the entire event, but the readings made no sense. The weapon had somehow converted matter directly into energy while simultaneously using that energy to accelerate more matter. It was a feedback loop that should have been impossible. "How is this possible?" whispered the Zephyrian observer, his voice shaking. "We don't know," Park admitted honestly. "Our computers say it should not work." "Your computers say it should not work, but it does work." The architects' crystalline form pulsed with confusion. "You have created something that violates the basic laws of physics. This weapon should have destroyed itself the moment it was activated." "Maybe the laws of physics are more flexible than we thought," suggested Nam. "Maybe the rules only apply when everyone agrees to follow them." The test continued with smaller targets. Each shot completely annihilated whatever it hit. The weapon never missed, never failed, never showed any signs of the instability that the calculations predicted. It simply worked, despite every reason why it should not. "Your people are insane," said the Zephyrian advisor, but his voice carried admiration rather than criticism. "Yes," agreed Park. "But our insanity might be exactly what this war needs." As word of the successful test spread through the galactic networks, more alien representatives arrived to witness the impossible. They came expecting to see crude human attempts at advanced technology. Instead, they saw something that challenged their understanding of reality itself. The shipyards continued working around the clock, producing more hybrid vessels that combined human brutality with alien sophistication. Each ship was unique, built by engineers who refused to accept that something could not be done simply because it had never been done before. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had spent millions of years perfecting their elegant solutions, but Earth had spent its entire history making things work through sheer stubbornness and creative ignorance of the rules. The first real battle came at the Kepler Relay, a strategic jump point that connected three major star systems. The Devourer. Scouts had arrived without warning, their dark shapes emerging from the void like nightmares made real. The Galactic Defense Fleet was already in position, their sleek ships arranged in perfect formations that had been tested in countless simulations. Captain Dong Jun, you stood on the bridge of his converted cargo hauler, watching the alien fleet. Engage the enemy. The beautiful ships of the Zephyrian Navy fired their energy weapons in coordinated patterns. Beams of pure light struck the Devourer vessels and simply vanished, absorbed into the dark hulls without causing any damage. Their weapons are useless, muttered Yu's weapons officer, watching the alien attacks fail completely. Then it's our turn, replied Yu, activating the ship's communication system. All human vessels prepare for attack run. The alien commanders tried to contact the human fleet. Hold position, ordered the Zephyrian admiral. Wait for our signal to retreat. Yu ignored the communication. His ship had been a simple cargo hauler 6 months ago, carrying mining equipment between asteroid belts. Now it was armed with nuclear warheads that violated every treaty the galaxy had ever signed. The missiles were crude, slow, and completely primitive by galactic standards. They were also exactly what the Devourers had never encountered before. All ships ramming speed, Yu commanded, pushing his engines to maximum power. The human fleet charged directly into the battle zone. Their ships were not beautiful like the alien vessels. They were converted mining platforms, repurposed freighters, and modified construction vehicles. Each one looked like it had been built in someone's garage using spare parts and desperation. Devourer scouts turned their attention to the approaching human ships. Dark energy beams struck the crude hulls, expecting to find the sophisticated shields and energy systems they had learned to counter. Instead, they found simple metal armor and basic magnetic fields. The energy beams passed through the magnetic fields without being absorbed. They struck the metal holes and burned holes in the armor, but the ships kept coming. The Devourers had learned to fight opponents who relied on energy and exotic matter. They had no experience with enemies who simply ignored damage and kept attacking. Yu's ship reached firing range first. Launch all missiles. He commanded. Nuclear warheads erupted from crude launch tubes, their chemical rockets pushing them toward the enemy at speeds that made the alien observers cringe. The missiles were so slow that any civilized defense system could have intercepted them easily. But the Devourers were not prepared for such primitive weapons. The first nuclear explosion struck a Devourer scout directly, the alien observers expected. The blast to be absorbed like all energy weapons. Instead, the crude atomic fire tore through the creature's shields as if they were not there. The explosion was not elegant or refined. It was simply destructive force applied without finesse or sophistication. Impossible, whispered the Architect Prime, watching from the safety of the command ship. Nuclear weapons are primitive. They should be useless against such advanced defenses. But the damage was real. The Devourer scout's dark hull cracked, leaking exotic matter into space. For the first time in recorded history, one of the legendary creatures had been wounded by galactic weapons. The other human ships pressed their attack. Captain Minho Song's modified mining platform used its ore processing lasers to cut through Devourer armor. The lasers were not designed as weapons, but their simple industrial function worked where sophisticated military technology had failed. Lieutenant Haewon Park's converted freighter rammed directly into a Devourer vessel, her ship's massive cargo. Bay doors opening to release a cloud of simple steel projectiles. The metal fragments tore through the creature's hull like bullets through paper. This is madness, observed the Zephyrian admiral, watching the chaotic battle. They have no formation, no strategy, no coordination. They have results, replied his tactical officer, studying the sensor readings. The Devourers are taking damage. The battle continued for 20 minutes. The human ships fought like street brawlers, using whatever weapons they could find. Chemical explosives designed for mining operations, industrial tools converted into weapons. Even simple kinetic projectiles fired from magnetic launchers, none of it should have worked. The Devourers were creatures of legend, beings that had destroyed entire civilizations. Their technology was beyond anything the galaxy understood. Yet they found themselves facing enemies who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. When the battle ended, 3 of the 5 Devourer scouts were dead. The other 2 retreated into hyperspace, their dark hulls leaking exotic matter and energy. The human fleet had lost 4 ships, but the remaining vessels were still functional despite damage that should have destroyed them. Admiral Eugene Kwan's ship limped back to the rally point, her hull still glowing from nuclear fire. Holes had been burned completely through the armor, but the ship's crude construction had prevented catastrophic failure. Where alien vessels would have been destroyed by such damage, the human ship simply kept working. Report requested the Architect Prime, its crystalline form flickering with confusion. Mission accomplished, replied Kwan, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The Devourers can be hurt. Your weapons lack elegance, efficiency, refinement, protested the architect. They violate every principle of advanced warfare, but they work, Kwan pointed out, gesturing toward the retreating enemy. Sometimes, the best solution is the one nobody else thought possible. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the battle reports spread through the communication networks. For the first time in millennia, the Devourers had been defeated in open combat. The victory had not come from advanced technology or sophisticated tactics. It had come from simple, brutal force applied without regard for proper procedure. The legends were no longer invincible. They could bleed, and they could be beaten. The galaxy finally had hope. The massive Devourer mothership appeared at the edge of the galaxy like a wound in space itself. It was larger than any space station ever. Built, its dark hull stretching across thousands of kilometers. The combined fleet of human and alien vessels looked like insects compared to the enormous creature that had emerged from the void. Between stars, Admiral Tae Young Han stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor readings with grim determination. The mothership was not just big, it was ancient. The alien computers estimated its age at over 1 million years. This was the source of all the smaller Devourers, the mother of nightmares that had haunted the galaxy since the beginning of recorded history. All ships, this is Admiral Han. He broadcast across the combined fleet. Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth, we are fighting for the right to exist. The alien vessels maintained their positions in perfect formation, their elegant ships ready to provide support and reconnaissance. But everyone knew the real fighting would be done by the humans. Only their crude weapons had proven effective against the Devourers. And only their willingness to sacrifice everything had given the galaxy hope. Captain Hiren Zheng checked her ship's systems one final time. Her converted mining platform had been modified with the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created, a fusion reactor designed to overload on command. The explosion would be equivalent to a small star-going supernova, but the ship would have to get close enough to the mothership's core to make it count. Engineering report, she requested over the internal communication system. Fusion reactor is ready for overload sequence, came the reply. We can maintain containment for approximately 3 minutes after initiation. Understood, Zheng replied. That should be enough time. The battle began with the alien fleets testing their weapons against the mothership's defenses. Energy beams that could destroy planets struck the dark hull and were absorbed without effect. Particle accelerators that could tear apart matter at the atomic level were redirected back at the ships that fired them. Exotic matter weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously were bypassed as if they were not there. The mothership responded with weapons of its own. Dark energy. Beams swept across the battlefield, causing alien ships to simply disappear. Matter conversion fields turned entire vessels into energy and absorbed that energy into the creature's hull. Reality distortion waves made some ships phase out of existence entirely. Human fleet begin attack run, ordered Han, watching his alien allies fall back to safer positions. The human ships charged forward in their typical chaotic fashion. There was no elegant formation, no sophisticated tactics. They simply flew directly at the enemy, firing whatever weapons they had while trying to get close enough to do real damage. Gang's mining platform led the charge. its massive bulk protected by armor that had been designed to withstand asteroid impacts. Dark energy beams struck the hull and burned through the metal, but the ship kept flying. The crude construction that the aliens found so distasteful proved its worth as damaged systems were bypassed and backup power kept the vessel functional. All ships, concentrate fire on the central core, Han commanded. We need to create an opening. Nuclear warheads exploded against the mothership's hull, their primitive atomic fire causing actual damage where sophisticated weapons had failed. Chemical explosives designed for mining operations tore holes in armor that had survived for millennia. Industrial lasers cut through defensive systems that had been built to counter the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The mothership began to respond more aggressively, its weapons focusing on the human fleet. Ships were destroyed in explosions that lit up the void, but the survivors kept coming. For every vessel that was lost, another took its place, pressing the attack with desperate courage. Fusion reactor overload initiated, announced Zheng's engineering officer. 3 minutes to containment failure. Gang felt her ship shudder as the reactor began to build toward critical levels. The mining platform was now a guided nuclear missile, its fusion core held in check only by systems that were rapidly failing. She had 3 minutes to reach the mothership's core before her ship became a miniature star. All power to engines, she ordered, watching the massive enemy vessel grow larger on her screen. The mothership's defensive systems tried to stop the approaching human vessel, but Zheng's ship was too crude for their sophisticated targeting systems. Energy beams designed to track fast-moving fighters could not lock onto the slow, clumsy mining platform. Matter conversion fields that expected complex alien technology failed to affect the simple metal construction. 2 minutes to reactor failure, reported the engineering officer. Gang's ship punched through the mothership's outer defenses, its armored hull absorbing damage that would have destroyed any civilized vessel. The mining platform's industrial cutting tools cleared a path through the creature's internal structure, boring toward the central core where the fusion explosion would do the most damage. 1 minute to containment failure came the final warning. For humanity, whispered Zheng. As her ship struck the mothership's core, the explosion that followed was visible from the other side of the galaxy. The mothership's death throes sent shockwaves through hyperspace, disrupting communication networks and causing star systems to flicker. When the energy finally dissipated, only empty space remained where the ancient creature had been. The devourer threat was over. The mothership's destruction had somehow killed all the smaller creatures as well, their connection to their source severed forever. The galaxy was safe, not because of elegant technology or sophisticated tactics, but because humanity had applied sufficient force until the problem ceased to exist. You don't just adapt to legends, observed the Zephyrian High Arbiter as the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. You rewrite reality itself? Humanity's elevation to galactic leadership came not through politics or manipulation, but through the simple demonstration that sometimes the most effective solution is the one nobody else thought possible. The galaxy had believed in legends, but Earth had forged reality.